Hello and welcome to Wehry Dads. I'm your host, PJ Wehry, with my co-host,
Dad, and it's a good time to be together. Hey, guess who our sponsor is today?
Home Depot.
No, they could happen. It could be Lowe's. Anyhow, our today sponsor is coffee mugs. Coffee mugs made in pottery shops in North Carolina, because North Carolina has the best pottery. We actually have a coffee mug here. And we no longer do the YouTube thing, so you can't see it, but it is a beautiful cup. We had 4 of them. We're down to 2. Down to 2. What do you think happened to the other 2? Smash
Stolen.
bang.
Oh, okay.
Smash bang. Anyhow, but the reason coffee mugs are so good is because
They give us coffee.
yes. So there's our, and I hope you grab that one. Get a mug.
Today's topic is on kind of continuing in the vein of morning preparation, morning routine. We've talked about your spiritual morning routine, devotions, and now we want to talk about preparing yourself mentally for the day.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is, your to-do list, making sure that you really, in a lot of ways, I think that's best done the night before.
Oh, I do.
Yeah. And at the very least, take the time to do that in the morning. I'd recommend doing it the night before. And so then you can kind of just let your brain shut off. But it needs to happen sometime.
Yeah. So can I jump on that?
Go
because
for it.
it's a really good thought. As you get ready in the morning, mental preparation, one of the best things you can do is to start off your day with your, I don't call it my to-do list. I call it my capture list, because I capture everything and then I try to do 3 big things at least every day. Okay. And those are my to-dos. There's 3 big things, and then there's other things that just occur. And I actually have some of that list broke up into phone calls. I work with character coaches. So I'll have a character coach. Then I do have in this capture list things to do, so on and so forth. But I think that is really good. And then let me give you another one to do the night beforehand. If you do this, if you work at a desk, don't leave your desk a mess. If you're supposed to get done with work, say at 5, okay, and that never happens for me. All my time is fluid. So if I've got to be somewhere at 3 and I'm working at my desk, I'll stop working at 2:50 and take 10 minutes to organize my desk so that when I walk in the next day and I've got more focus, it's already prepared to cruise and get work done.
Yeah. And I think softening transitions is a big thing. I see this a lot in parenting, is if you can master transitions and you can just get cycles started, that's huge, right? Like, when is it hardest to watch the kids? It's when you're moving to the van, you're trying to get everyone to do what they're supposed to do. There's lots of little tasks involved. And that's what, when we talk about bedtime to morning routines, that's kind of what we're talking about, is mastering these transition points.
It's good.
So talking about the mental side of things, I think 2 good principles. One is eating the frog. The other one is getting your big rocks in terms of everyone's seen the jar, you put the big rocks and the sand and then the water and all that.
Right.
So for me, what that looks like, because we've talked about examples, is that I have specific long-term projects. And because my days are so urgent with the kids, if I don't do it in the morning, it doesn't get done. And so for me, that's studying philosophy and that's writing fiction. So I read 3 books in the morning, and I'll talk a little bit about why I do that. I read a chapter in one philosophy book, a chapter in another philosophy book, and I read a chapter in a book on writing. And then I actually take some time and I write each morning. To be quite frank, not this last 2 weeks, because the kids had croup and I was up all night and I did not get up. So it just didn't happen. But the point is not to quit, but just get back in a groove, start doing it again. And again, this is going to depend on each person, but I want you to understand why read multiple books at a time. What I have found, especially with philosophy, if you're reading a hard book, you're talking about reading Dane Ortland and you're going deeper, that's what the book is called, and you're going deeper in the book deeper. To really, if you have something that's really thought-provoking, you can really only handle one of those at a time.
Yeah, like one deep truth. You've got to let it
Yes.
ruminate and resonate and all the R's that I could think of right there.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so what happens is when I'm reading philosophy, normally they're building arguments chapter by chapter. And so I read a chapter and then it gives me space throughout the day to think about that and just to let my mind deal with it. And so if I read 2 philosophy books, generally the ideas are different enough that they're not running into each other. But what I've found is if I push myself to read 2 chapters in the same book, I start losing it. And this is, I think, a really important thing is don't read, if you're reading like, I'll read kind of crappy fiction and I don't care if I lose some stuff in that.
Yep.
And there's value to that and just like relaxing your mind, all that sort of thing. But read the books for the purpose that you're reading them for. And so for philosophy, if I don't get it, if I don't get one chapter, I'm probably not going to get the next. And there's no point in me spending all this time. So taking it chapter by chapter and then doing 2 very different things. So one, I often get weird cross-fertilization where like they interact with each other in strange ways. But then also it allows my brain to kind of switch things up. So I'm not just like hammering the same thing over and over again. And that's important. I think the variety is good. And then obviously, as we talk about this, building different parts of who you are and focusing on those projects. So for me, getting writing done is really important. So I do this book on writing and I do these 2 philosophy books. And that is the mental side for me.
Okay, so everything PJ just said is very important for you all to note out there as listeners, and it's really good because he said this the other day. You don't do what we do, you do what you do, but you got to do what you do.
Right.
So PJ does that, I do this. There's some similarities, and I love the statement PJ made, and I want you all to grab it, cross-fertilization. When you read different stuff and you begin to formulate numerous ideas, somehow they'll funnel together and give you new thoughts. And here's the truth. Don't stay the same. And I understand there are people out there that don't like to read. And I know we could go with the cliche and feel like we're watching morning cartoons of readers are leaders and all that. But I will tell you, most of the strong leaders that I have connected with love to read. And I didn't say the closest readers I know. I'm talking strong leaders are guys that read. And so I read. Go.
They just had, apparently they've done studies on this. And if you listen to audiobooks, it activates the same part of the brain. So like that's audiobooks. Like for me, reading is how the way, like I actually really struggle with audio content.
Yeah.
Preaching, lecturing, I don't grasp it.
I get distracted. My mind starts racing.
And so
I'm sure you're
yes, I'm telling you what I do,
Yeah.
but I think the things that remain the same are learn the different things.
So let me continue because everything you just said will be correlated in this. So I read something about spiritual, so I'm reading deeper. Mm-hmm. There's a book on coaching, which really, folks, leadership, every moment matters. And it's talking about the importance of understanding you're not looking at a player, you're looking at a person. You're not looking at an employer, you're looking at a person. I mean, it's
employee or employer?
Employee. Sorry, my fault.
I mean,
employee.
true for employer too.
Right.
Both.
Checklist is a book that literally talks about the importance of routines. It's written by a doctor who they have saved lives because doctors, if they go into the surgery, they'll have a checklist to make sure they don't miss a step. And some of you may go, well, I hope they do that. But this is the same, like for coaches, for leaders, if you got to have a process, right? And then there's an app that I love. It's called Pocket.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I read 1 or 2 articles from that every day. Now, PJ already mentioned something that he doesn't like to verbalize, that, my kids were sick, so I missed some days. The truth is, I haven't read Pocket in 3 or 4 days, but that's okay. I'm collecting the articles, and then at some point I will take and read those. The reason Pocket's good is it's magazine articles, so it's not just information from the past. It's the best articles for today. But all of this, going back to what PJ said, is this. Mental, there's reading, there's podcasts, there's reflection, there's writing. All of this will stimulate your mind. What keeps people from stimulating their mind today? Give me some things you think would do that.
I mean, the classic ones are like TV and social, right?
Right. So Facebook now has videos. Why did it do that?
TikTok.
Yeah. So I'll get caught. I'll look at like 20 videos. I'm going, what am I doing? I'm
so
wasting
easy.
time. Yeah, I'm wasting time here.
We've talked about the average time, like the average TikTok user watches TikTok in 1.5 to 3 hour sessions.
That's ludicrous, man.
Yeah, it's like they go through probably around 300 videos per session. Like that. So, most people don't sit there and they don't even realize how many videos they're going through. They sit there and most people don't get on and just watch 2 30-second videos. They get on and they watch 300. And that's a weird, anyway, that's not, we don't need to get onto that subject. I have strong opinions on that.
I think we all need to be aware of that. So folks, and PJ and I have already mentioned it. Now, if I listen to podcasts that are on leadership, like Michael Hyatt or something like that, I'm really good. If I listen to audiobooks, I can get distracted. Now, I think I listened to Killing, what's the guy that was on Fox? I can't think of it. He wrote, Killing Reagan, Killing Lincoln, whatever. I listened to that on some trip one time, and I remember most of that. But like for me, now I will tell you, I read a book when I was walking on sugar and insulin and the impact that has. But most of all, you got to do something. Half an hour too.
Yeah. And I mean, something that's useful too is substitution. So I've started reading crappy books instead of doing social. It does the same thing for my brain because it's like, I'm pretty dead to the world. But after I finish reading books, after I finish reading one of these books, I feel rested. After I finish with social, I feel drained. And so just finding one thing I found is really helpful. YouTube has gone more in the TikTok direction too, so that's kind of sticky. But I found that if I was on my phone, I tried to watch educational content on YouTube. And YouTube can be good for that. There's some incredible educational content on YouTube, especially if you have to find the right niche. But that's that's another, like for some people, that's going to work better.
I think it's interesting you're saying that because I am the most non-gifted in fixing things, but I have fixed stuff because I watched how to do it with YouTube. Yeah. I've put different hooks up in our garage, which I would have been intimidated by, being fearful I would stick it into a wire, get the whole electric.
Well, that's
Zach. Did you hear that? The guy that does our podcast, I just scared him. But the point is, there is good stuff there. And what we're saying, and PJ, I'm going to let you close this out, but I want to, before we close, I'll say this. You can say all you want. You can, and I'm careful, I'll use this, excuse her, but one of the things you must do is you must keep growing. And yes, you can get that through certain videos and you can get that from podcasts, but boy, there's nothing like reflecting on a great book. And we all know this. I watched the movie, the Patriot Games by Tom Clancy. But when I read the book, it was so much more entrenched. Now that's fiction when you're talking about leadership and stuff. And right now I've had the privilege to invest in a number of leaders. And it's not because I think I'm that great a leader, but I have done a lot of research on leadership.
So part of this too is one thing you'll notice is that I take time to write in the morning and I'm developing a skill. So if there's a project that you want to work on, spend a little bit of time each morning honing that skill.
Really good.
And
say it again.
Take some time each morning to hone that skill.
Hone your skills.
Yeah. So for me, that's writing, right? That's what and that helps both with my goals in fiction and my goals in philosophy, right? Like, so I found a way to kind of make that dovetail together. I can feel we say this every time, or, like this is discouraging. I never do this well enough. I want to be real about, I go weeks sometimes if the kids get sick where this doesn't happen. And it feels like we're constantly telling you to self-evaluate. It's going to be hard at first, but the more you self-evaluate, the more it becomes a habit. And it will only really take you about 5 minutes a week to really just stop. It's just about triggering that moment in your mind to stop and think about what you're doing. And that's where, think about your morning routine as we're talking about this. And find something that's within your limits. And recognize when sometimes you just have crazy spikes in your life and don't get discouraged. So that's where you self-evaluate, right? Like, I'm like, am I doing too much in the morning and it's just like, it's overwhelming me? Then I need to pull back. Is it just because my kids all caught croup and I just need to get back to it after that happens? And that doesn't take a lot of self-reflection. It just needs you to be aware and not get discouraged and see that the end goal is not 3 hours for a week. It's half an hour to an hour every day for 10 years. It's a huge difference.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk about this in our next session, but this is just a reality. If I read 6 days a week and I miss a day, that's going to be part of life. That's better than reading 2 days a week.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than reading no days a week.
Yeah.
So if I read 3, it's better than 0. And it's interesting you said this about routine, because folks, you don't know this, but I have become weird about routine. So it's, and I mean, it's, some people look at me. So I call them rituals every day. I have tweaked those rituals every 3 to 6 months because I'm either feeling a little bit stagnant or I overreached. Right. And I thought, I can't do all this. Yeah. Okay. And, but boy, how important
and that's okay. Adjust it for yourself. And I think that's like, when people hear this, our goal is to encourage you and our goal is to help you to grow, not to make you feel like, I grew up independent fundamental Baptist, and people would be like, well, you know, Martin Luther got up at 4 a.m. to pray every day. And I remember being 12 and being like, that's crazy. And now I'm like, well, that's because he went to bed at like 9.
There's a whole discussion. I remember hearing that and going, when you don't have electricity,
right?
It's you don't have electricity, you probably go to bed at 8 or 9. And so you get up at 4.
Well, and let's also remember that you're saying this to a 12-year-old or like a 12-year-old, and then Martin Luther was getting up at 4 a.m. to pray because he was anxiety ridden because he was still trying to figure out the gospel. Like, wow. And it's so, you know, when you talk about those stories, like people are just like, this is what you should be doing. And it's like, that's not what we're looking for.
That's not good for your mental. All right. What is good for your mental is, folks, make sure that you are growing by reading, podcasts, and other areas that you can enhance, so that whether it be listening, audible, don't stop growing. Appreciate you, PJ.
Love you, Dad.
See you.